did step down. And of course, the same applies to all the other political parties too.
Right. Now, let's just talk about branch structures in general. And when one looks at the purpose, when one looks at the reason why they are designed, and as I mentioned earlier, it is about representing the party at grassroots level, democracy at work at a grassroots level. Now, looking at the ANC, and we've seen in many instances question marks being raised against branches collapsing, power struggle within the branches. How has this impacted on the ANC?
The big impact is that where branches fizzle out because members drop out and don't come, it means that there's a gap in the party structures. It can mean that even a regional or provincial executive falls into disuse because there's not functioning party branches underneath it. So it's up to the ANC organizers to again encourage their voters and supporters to join the nearest branch. And of course, the same applies to all the other political parties. Most people, after all, are not intellectuals and bookworms, so they tend to be mostly excited about politics every 2.5 years when we go to vote. And of course, in between, they drop out of politics to look at sport or pop concerts or other entertainment.
Mm. Now, also, Keith, one of the problems in South Africa is when one looks at the various political parties and when one looks at the membership, and you articulate this in your article where you speak about the number of members the ANC would have and also some of the other political parties. And as far as interest in politics go, because when one talks about interest in politics, it normally begins right at the bottom. And when one looks at the branch structures, where many of the membership actually comes through and filters down through to the party, are you finding that there is very little interest or a lack of interest or a declining interest as far as participation in branch politics go?
Yes, very often you'll find, say, 15 people of 115 will come to a branch's monthly meeting, and many branches will struggle to be able to hold monthly meetings at all. For example, a good example is that the Gabby Shapiro branch of the ANC in Cape Town has held monthly meetings 11 months of the year since 1990, which is 30 years to date. But other branches haven't kept up such a good record, and I'm sure that our honorable friends across the floor in the DA have similar problems in keeping branches enthusiastic.
Yes. Now, is this as a result of just a lack of interest in politics, or do you think that there could be other reasons? And particularly when one talks about branches, I suppose many members within political parties like the ANC could be, those who have been loyal to the party, those that have actually grown with the party. But when one looks at young South Africans at this point in time, uh, do young people really care about membership and about branch politics?
You're certainly right. Some branches are dominated by the golden oldies, the veterans who came through the struggle years, and we do see that the percentage of people who vote is lowest among the youngest. That is the 18 to 22-year-olds of it there. So to all parties, having a vibrant youth wing is important to their structures. This is where the new young leaders will come up for the generations ahead. And all modern political parties have a youth wing which they encourage to get active in politics.
Mm. Now, I see you also make mention of ghost members. And this is quite interesting that you raise this issue in your article, talking about ghost branches and about membership fees and about those that would nominate a delegate. Like, for instance, we've seen when the elective conference had taken place and we saw how close the battle was between Dlamini Zuma and the president of the country, President Cyril Ramaphosa. So I think this is quite important. This is quite relevant because it does appear as if branches feature very, very prominently, especially at this point in time when it comes to electing leaders and at events like the elective conference.
Yes, it was the point that Gwedi Mantashe and other secretaries general of the ANC have raised in previous years. What one has got is cases, examples of unscrupulous aspirant politicians who will sign up people, pay them money to join, pay their membership fee for the year, and set up a branch whose sole function is to vote for that aspirant politician for some office, and then this ghost branch just drops out of existence for another 5 years. And the opposite tactic is where it's known as a branch, let's say, is going to support Cyril Ramaphosa and against Jacob Zuma. Some of Zuma's supporters would act as gatekeepers and try to cross off the membership list members of that branch. So the ANC took unprecedented measures to stamp out and combat these malpractices. And for example, at the meetings where branches were to vote for either Ramaphosa or Dlamini Zuma, each member had to show their ID book, get it imaged on a digital device, which date stamped it, time stamped it, and put in the GPS coordinates to prove that all those members really existed, were there, and were present at the same time. So that's quite unprecedented for any political party to combat malpractices.
Yes, and obviously that is the one issue with regard to malpractices. And another issue that you raised, Keith, is with regard to the ANC in terms of revising its constitution to provide a mechanism, because we know that sometimes when these branches have meetings, there is no quorum, and then the meeting is adjourned for some time in the future.
I think this is a big issue which I've observed over the years, that where typically, say, 15 or 20 people out of 100 come and never the quorum of 50 plus 1, you find people come to a meeting which can't proceed, so they get demoralized and drop out. Then they're asked to come a week later. The same thing happens, and a week later, and a week later, which is incredibly boring, and people don't want to come at all. And what I would urge the ANC to adopt is a quite common procedure used in trade unions and other organizations, that if a meeting isn't quorate for an AGM, it's simply postponed by 7 days. When it reconvenes, you may only consider items on the original agenda, and that meeting is deemed to be quorate regardless of the number of people present. So you actually get through the business and elect people without boring members for a fruitless meeting. And I know many other organizations use this procedure successfully, so I would urge the ANC to adopt it.
Please, just finally, what can the ANC do to strengthen its branches?
There, some of the tactics used is to invite a popular speaker or a impressive speaker as a guest to address a branch, so there's an interesting item to look forward to. Other branches have, for example, like the Gabby Shapiro branch, they've taken up projects such as helping Township found a food garden. They've adopted a school to raise funds to bring desks for it, and other projects of the sort. So that's a very enterprising idea.
Well, Keith, thank you very much for that and for your time with us this morning. All the best to you, sir.
All the best.
Keith Gottschalk joining us this morning about the ANC, the branches being the Achilles heel for Africa's oldest party.